So tomorrow is September 21st, which means it is the International Day of Peace. This day has been celebrated since about 1983. And throughout the world, people stop what they're doing and celebrate peace. Even nations that have been in conflict, violent conflict with one another, will put their guns down, their weapons down, and have a ceasefire for this particular day. So in order to prepare for this, or to celebrate this, many of us at the Raven Foundation have been reading this online booklet that you can find called The Alliance of Civilizations. This here is actually the front cover. It's nice and green. You can Google it and find it online. It's produced by the United Nations, The Alliance of Civilizations. Now, many of you, this will sound familiar. You'll be reminded of the Clash of Civilizations, a thesis put forward by Samuel Huntington in the mid to early 1990s after the Cold War ended. And the Clash of Civilizations was Huntington's term or phrase in order to describe what he saw as the next great conflict in the world. And this was going to be over civilizations. And he saw three primary civilizations that were going to fall into conflict. And that is the West, the Islamic world, and Asia, primarily China. These were the three groups that were going to have this major clash of civilizations. Now, Huntington's thesis has been critiqued by many people, justifiably so for some reasons, I think. But what I appreciate about Huntington's thesis is primarily that he says no civilization is innocent. We all play a part in this. So it's not as if the West is some kind of pure and pristine civilization fighting the good fight against the Islamic world or against China. He says that we all have these ideologies that we're trying to impose upon one another, and no one is innocent. Now, I appreciate that, but Huntington's thesis is a bit simplistic, and the Alliance of Civilization booklet helps us understand why. Because no civilization exists in a vacuum, but rather we form one another. These civilizations intersect with one another, and we help each other form into our identities. And so it's rather simplistic to say the West, the Islamic world, and China all exists in this identity as the West, the Islamic world, and China, but rather we are all intersecting with one another. And if we can see how our identities actually rely on one another, we can see our common humanity with one another. And I think that this is the way that the Alliance of Civilizations is trying to lead us into. It also says that the way that we form these important topics matters. Because once we start talking primarily about a clash of civilizations, it leads to bitterness and resentment, hostility, and a lack of trust for one another. Because we think that this is what we are primarily about, clash, dominating one another. Whereas that if we talk about an alliance of civilizations, we might be able to start off on the right foot and be led into the spirit of mutual respect for one another. So those are my thoughts on International Day of Peace and this clash and alliance of civilization. What does this mean for us in our personal lives? That we form one another, that we don't exist independently of one another, but we exist in absolute dependence of one another. This is the case not just for civilizations, but also for us as individuals. I'd like to hear your thoughts on either one of those. So hope you have a very nice International Day of Peace. Take care.